Watching Ned Stark is like watching the most painful car crash in slow motion. I'm currently rereading a Game of Thrones for the podcast, and right now, just going through Ned's whole journey, I am so struck by the inevitability of it all. And before anyone's like, oh yeah, well looking back, that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about how the actions he's taking, the moves he's making across from the people that he's working across from, were always going to lead to him and or his family getting hurt. And I'm not talking about like the readership seeing it. I think that like for an audience, it still can come as a surprise because of the conventions of storytelling that we're used to. But if you look at the logic of it, if you look at like the moves he makes, it's so like clear that like there wasn't ever going to be another option. And that's what I think makes it such a compelling narrative, because it is so obvious like logically where this is all leading, but the readership, the audience, never like allows themselves to believe it because it doesn't make sense. This is so clearly like as close to a protagonist as we're gonna get, at least in the first book. Because remember, in the first book, it's all from different POVs, but Ned takes the cake in terms of quantity, at least for the first chunk of it. When most of the other characters are on like POV chapter number like 5 or 3 or 6 or whatever, he's up at like number 11. We are with him so much. And that's kind of the brilliance of the writing, because like you are with him so much that in your mind it almost like gives him that like plot armor, because like this is the main character, but all of his actions are not are not plot armory in nature. These are very dangerous things that are eventually going to catch up with him, but the reader like almost can't allow themselves to accept that. So when people talk about like George subverting expectations, or like, oh, it's all supposed to be a surprise, like, yes and no. The subversion of the expectations is not that like, ooh, something is coming out of left field. It's that something has been so well set up this entire time, but your mind subconsciously has never allowed you to think that like the worst is a possibility. So when the worst does happen, that feels like a shock, despite the fact that like it was always leading here. And this distinction is so important to acknowledge, because I think it's why the show later on, goes off the rails. The whole idea of like subverting expectations doesn't work if the results of that are illogical. Ned's moves, as well as his just narrative in general, are logical the entire time. I understand why this character does everything that he does, and I also understand why that leads to his demise. There is a clear logic in all of the things that are going on. If something comes out of left field, it's only because my perception of it has caused me to feel like that, not that it was actually like coming out of left field. So please, let's stop excusing like bad writing as like, oh, well, it was surprising. No, because surprising things should be surprising because you didn't see it coming, not because the logic would never have let you get there. Anyway, like I said, new podcast episode dropped literally like a few minutes ago, so enjoy, drop a like, do all the things. Good night.